Time for the Tesla and Palantir weekly update. Also going to include Coinbase and most of the crypto miners too. So stay tuned for all of that. So starting off with Tesla, we can see it had a very nice weekly candle close. And in fact, this is the highest weekly candle close since the correction back in January, which is a very bullish development. And I think it needs to be paid attention to because this 414.50 is actually the 2021 top, and it closed back above it. In fact, it even opened the week above it and went down to retest it and back test it and even closed above. So I know a lot of people are saying, hey, there's a gap right here at 396.69, but a lot of times gaps do not get filled. So this is something that we just have to focus on, right? 414.50. That's really the main area of focus for us for next week, right? All we got to do is continue to stay above it the whole time, and then we can continue towards all-time highs, right? There really is nothing else to focus on because if it can't get below 414.50, then it's not going to close that gap. So one level at a time, and it did break above that level, so that's the main takeaway here. Also, when we go to log scale here on my chart, we can just have all the indicators on there and look at what happened, right? We closed above so many things. The cloud, all indicators on the chart, this arc, which was the breakout arc, and now we actually have the GAN level above in our sights, and that is at 473.50. That's going to be our next major resistance zone as long as this 414.50 continues to hold. So there's really not much else to it, right? Stay above 414.50, then we do not need to retest lower, and this journey back up towards all-time highs can begin. So that's the range we're in now, 414.50 all the way up to the 473.50. So nothing's really going to change that until either level breaks. And next we have Palantir, and Palantir, we can see that it had a very healthy weekly candle close. And in fact, it had a very healthy weekly candle close last week that we talked about too. So 157.62, it did close the week above, and this is very important, right? This kind of proves to us that it wants to go back towards all-time highs. And really, that's the only focus that we need to keep our eye on, right? The 157.62. Stay above it. It's going to be able to go higher. Even putting back on that GAN square that I've shown you before since last week and the weeks prior, that it even closed another week back above that 160.63. So staying above that zone, that 160 down to 157, is going to pave the way to going back towards all-time highs. One thing we can put on is a more recent fib too. I just want to show you this from this more recent top in February to the April bottom. We can just focus on that and just show you what is really next. It is this 186.27. So essentially, this week it broke out, even back tested the 163.46, and now we're trying to break above this 186.27. So this is the only barrier left until all-time highs. Once we flip this 168.27 to support, then guess where price can go? It can easily go to the 200s and maybe even the 240s, 250s, maybe even the 283 up top after that. So fantastic development for Palantir. There's really no bearish bone in its chart. It's just super bullish. And we just got one hurdle left until we're able to blast off to the 200s, and that is 186.27. So that's going to be our focus for resistance next week. And next we have Coinbase, and Coinbase actually had a very fantastic weekly candle close as well. It did close back above for the second week in a row, 318.95. In fact, it even broke out and even back tested that 318.95 this week successfully and continued higher. The thing is, we have not broken out completely yet, and I think the reason why is a couple of things. One of them is this previous high right here back in December 2024. It did not break above that. In fact, it got rejected at that zone. So it's not ready to blast off towards all-time highs just yet. That number is 349.75. Also, when we put on the Ichimoku, we can see that price did not get above the conversion line yet, which is at 363.92. So we have a little bit more of a barrier to go until we break into all-time high territory. So the fact is we got to focus on 349.75 up to 363.92 to break that in the weeks to come. Maybe even next week, we'll find out. But the important thing is to just keep maintaining this 886 fib right here, the 318.95. If successful, then it's just going to keep building a powerful base at a higher level until it's really ready to break this 350 to 364 zone and blast off towards all-time highs. All right, now let's do the Bitcoin miners. So Bitcoin miners, we're going to just first start off with CLSK. This had a very, very bullish weekly candle. Look at this, a huge 31% that just caught everybody off guard, except for us here. We did understand that this is going to continue higher because support was holding perfectly down here at that 50% level, 939. Now we're at a very interesting point now for CLSK, and this is the 1366, and this level right here. When we do look at this previous top, let's just pay attention to this this high right here. I'm showing this fib just because it's from the low of April 2025 and the high up here. So essentially, I just want to see if it can actually close back above it, and it did not, right? It did not close back above it, which is okay because it kind of matches where that blue GAN level is as well. So just taking that off, we can also just see that what's the next steps to do, right? The next steps are this 45-degree angle, and then you got the blue level, and then you got the previous highs, and then you got the cloud. So we are at a big resistance point for CLSK, and it's not really guaranteed to keep going, but if it can break free of this $14 zone, let's just call it 1380s to $14, then I think it's free and clear to be very explosive, and then just even go up to the 18s and maybe even this 618 up here at 2188. So this has a chance to become very explosive, but it's at a major resistance point right now. So we got to see if it can break free, and if so, it's going to go a lot higher. But if not, it could retest some lower levels, but it's okay. It's a big, giant, bullish engulfing candle. There's nothing bearish about this development. All it has to do is try to break this 1370s barrier to see if it can get more and more bullish. But either way, even if it needs more time, it's still a very, very bullish development. And next we got Riot, and Riot we can see, we can put on the moving averages too. We can see it already broke out and back tested everything down here, including this purple 200-week moving average. And now we can see it's breaking above this 1514. So I think that's a very important development here. Another thing we can look at as well is the previous high up here down to the low down here, and we can see it still is getting rejected at that 886 fib, which is $18, and that is going to be a point of interest to break above maybe in the weeks to come. So if $18 can get broken, that's going to be great, but if not, it might need to retest the 1590s or so before it continues higher. But either way, bullish developments, successful breakout backtest completed, going higher. Now we're just going to watch the 1590s try to stabilize as support, and then in the weeks to come, try to break above that $18 and head back to the 2023 previous highs at 2065. Mara is next, and Mara actually had a fantastic weekly candle close. And if you look at this chart, we can see one thing is going to happen next week. And what's going to happen next week is price is actually going to open up inside of the weekly cloud. This is a big trend change, right? The last time it was inside the weekly cloud was basically just briefly when it sliced right through back in December of 2024. So entering that cloud is bullish. Also, maintaining that 100-week moving average is bullish, 1776. Also, it was a bullish engulfing candle up 12%. Yes, not as good as CLSK, but it closed above all important levels. The conversion line, the 100-week moving average, the 50-week moving average, and it's going to be in the cloud next week. So put those all together. We're just going to simply watch that $17 zone, maybe even down towards the bottom of the cloud next week, which could be around 1710s or so, right? We'll watch that. Stay in that 1776, 1710s, low 17s. Stay in that zone. It's going to be free and clear to try to attempt to break this 1955 and go towards the top of the cloud there around $20. And Cipher, very, very beautiful breakout too. We got the 886 right there, 1010, right? That broke out. We do see that there is an ability to continue higher because that is all-time high down to all-time low. That's the 886 fib. This is the most important thing to break into all-time highs. So I think the next target could be 1539, and after that, it could start trying to tackle these fib extensions above 42s, 71s, 150s above. All of these become possible once it breaks into all-time high territory. So fantastic development there. 1539. We're going to watch that. And in the meantime, all that really matters for this chart is staying above 1010, right? That's it. Stay above that. It's going to keep going higher and higher and higher. IREN is next. Super bullish breakout of a green GAN level here. This is incredible. All-time highs was already broken last week. Now we broke above a GAN level there. So 34.47 can be our support in the weeks to come for the attempt to just continue charging higher to the arcs above 58s. The 1.272 fib is at 69.72. There's just nothing but blue skies ahead, really, or green skies for green candles, right? Just nothing but empty space ahead to just continue. All that really matters for IREN is just staying above this 34.40s. If so, it's going higher. BTBT also is looking better and better. And the reason why is we can see that it actually reclaimed some levels here. Zooming in, we can see it reclaimed the 100-week moving average, this blue line, last week. And this week, it got back above the green 50-week moving average and even the Ichimoku baseline there at 309. So even though people are hating on it a lot, it is actually just slowly breaking one resistance level at a time, and it is looking like in the weeks to come, it is also going to enter the cloud soon, which means it'll have the ability to soon go to the 370s, maybe the $4 above. So what stands in the way now is just this conversion line here at 320. And once it can break above that, then I think we can enter the cloud in the weeks to come and get a lot more bullish. So next week, what we're watching for support is basically the $3 zone. That's all I'm really watching. Stay around that $3. It's going to eventually continue higher. It's a bullish development going in the right direction. And Woof, we can see that 1182 is coming soon. But one thing I want to point out, though, is this monthly 200. This is really, really important because it broke above and already back tested it on the monthly chart. So if we're looking at something that's super important, this is it. The 908, stay above it. That's going to be crucial, but we do have to recognize that this huge resistance zone is coming up very, very soon. That's the 1182. That's the top of the cloud, right? That's 1226, and this cloud is pretty thick up here too, right? So it's a big monthly cloud. It has not been inside the monthly cloud since it just sliced through like butter back in 2022. So this could be a huge resistance zone. So we cannot ignore this, right? This is why I'm showing the monthly chart exactly for Woof, because 1180s up to 1230s could be a huge zone. But the good news is, as long as it holds this 200-month moving average at 908, it can just spend some time consolidating in this zone, and it actually could spend a while, maybe like a few months in this zone, and then eventually break free. So I think patience is going to be required, but the closer it gets to $12, I think the more cautious we got to be there for Woof. Bitfarms, an amazing development here too. Look at that. Last week broke above everything, and this week we had continuation and follow through higher. So if we're going to be looking at something to break out further, let's first put on the Fibonacci levels here from the high to the low right there. We can see it actually closed the week above that 286. And I did talk about that last week. And even this week on X, I made a post about it saying, be cautious here at resistance. But you know what? It closed above. So closing above that kind of gives us a little bit more confirmation that it can possibly stabilize at a higher level now. So if we're looking for a weekly support zone, that's going to be it. 286. Stay above that. The next target's going to be 376. And that 45-degree angle up there, maybe $4. And then we have the blue level of my GAN, 550, and the 786 at 496. So these are all going to be the resistance zones above. And let's focus on 286 for a potential back test before able to continue that journey higher. Hive is next, and Hive, I just want to show you that it got rejected by a huge level today and this week. The 200-week moving average, the orange GAN level, the 382 fib right there. Also, it was a breakout, right? It was a breakout rejection, so we could be going back down for a back test first before we want to break free of this big resistance zone. So what we're going to do next week is watch this area. $4 down towards maybe the cloud here, 340. I think that can be our acceptable range for some time until it's really ready to break free of this 4 to 436 range. So great development, huge breakout last week, but now I think it's time for some consolidation until it's really ready to continue that journey higher. So we'll watch that range all next week. And lastly, for the miners, HUT. We can see HUT actually broke above some levels too. The 702 fib right there, which is important. And if we're going to look for any kind of a back test, it's going to be that 3330s right there. Maybe a little bit lower towards these previous highs right here, which could be around $30 too. That could be a potential back test zone as well. But the bottom line here is it's a massive breakout from the cloud, from all these fib levels. And the main focus for me is seeing if it can stabilize above that 33.33. So that'll be it. And then the next targets will be 41, 43, and the $58 zone above, which I believe it can get there eventually, but it might need some time consolidating into the lower 30s before continuing that journey higher.